Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, with my second presentation reviewing why it was that Mao and the Communists won the Chinese Civil War, and not Chiang Kai-shek and the Guomindang. In using my attack and defence approach to history, in this presentation I'm looking at what Chiang and the Guomindang got wrong. The Americans were shocked by the loss of China to the Communists, and were damning of Chiang's tactics. Manchuria, they thought, was Chiang's first mistake, the region in which the Communists held the advantage. Chiang didn't have the logistic means to control it, and shouldn't have tried to. They lacked leadership. Chiang valued loyalty in his generals above ability. The Americans regarded Chiang's officer corps as incapable, inept, untrained, petty, and altogether inefficient. Guomindang commanders also ill-treated their troops. The majority were unwilling conscripts, dragged from their villages, leaving their families facing possible starvation, and threatened with savage reprisals to themselves and their families if they didn't fight, or if they deserted. Even so, whole units would march and sleep roped together, so each soldier was made responsible for the man next in line. If he escaped, the next in line would be held responsible and beaten or denied rations. Some units were forced to sleep naked, even in midwinter, their clothes removed from them to discourage escape. Rations were in some units inadequate as a result of corrupt officers. So, despite the fear of reprisals, they deserted anyway, up to 10% per month. And as they took communist-held villages, the Guomindang adopted a policy they described as draining the pond to catch the fish, which meant the slaughter of all able-bodied men. The villages were burned and the crops seized or else destroyed. Women and girls were raped and sold as prostitutes or as slaves, a practice that only ended under pressure from foreign missionaries. The number of villagers killed was staggering, and if they weren't killed, their ability to survive was made almost impossible as the crops were taken, and what couldn't be taken was made useless. Corn, wheat and millet deliberately mixed with manure, wells filled up with earth. In an attempt to destroy the communists' will to fight, the nationalists brutally attacked their families whenever they were captured. Mao's first wife, young Kai-shek, was beheaded. Their children were hidden by relatives. Soldiers dug up Mao's parents' graves. Following America's entry into the Pacific War, the Guomindang tended to sit back, expecting the Americans to defeat the Japanese for them. As for taking on the Red Army, their response to Mao's guerrilla tactics, going on to the defensive, gave the Communists the initiative, presenting them with sitting targets to attack. And they failed to use their superior air power, which should have given them a huge strategic advantage. In contrast, the Americans were full of praise for the way the Communists mobilized support, maintained a disciplined army with high morale, and had the leadership to outthink the nationalists. And as I pointed out in my video on the Guomindang in power, as well as ruling as an authoritarian one-party state, they also failed to manage the economy. hyperinflation did more to question the Guomindang's ability to govern than any other single factor. In February 1947, the government resorted to price controls and a wage freeze, but prices continued to soar. Industrial production also fell, and there were numerous strikes. In August, the now desperate government, as a last resort, introduced a new paper currency, the golden yuan note. It also proposed severe tax increases and cuts in government expenditure. But by November, the new currency had become valueless, costing many people their livelihood or their life savings. Quite simply, the Guomindang had failed the Chinese. The Japanese invasion undermined the foundations, weak though they may have been, of the Guomindang regime. In the cities, the main source of their economic and political support, they were driven out, whilst in the countryside, the gentry, the source of what fragile authority there was, fled, or else were left defenceless at the hands of the Japanese, their position of independent local authority destroyed. In exchange for keeping the rural population under control, they were allowed to continue their traditional exploitation of the peasantry, but this only served to undermine their long-term position, as they were seen to be conspiring with the enemy for personal gain. The Guomindang were demoralised, and as they retreated westwards, the authority of the nationalist government inevitably collapsed. Yet though the Japanese held a tight control over the cities, China's size and limited Japanese manpower meant that though they brutally plundered the countryside with indiscriminate military forays, they couldn't effectively control it, hence the use made of those landlords who chose to remain. So there was a vacuum for the communists to exploit, and they seized their chance. The Japanese remained a factor even after their defeat. Guomindang leaders seemed to be more concerned with ensuring they personally benefited from the situation, seizing on Japanese possessions, be it currency, gold, property, houses, factories and businesses, cars, even Japanese women. The perception was that the Guomindang were also eager to resume the civil war and finish off the communists. They were consequently held responsible for the consequences of that war. This included the continued presence of foreigners on Chinese soil, Americans. It also meant that meagre economic resources continued to be devoted to the military rather than to economic recovery, education, or improved welfare. So, in a nutshell, the Guomindang were badly led. Not only did this show itself in poor tactics, but they committed atrocities against their own people, even their own troops. Where they were in control, they did not govern well, far from it, and their response to the Japanese invasion ended any credibility they may have had with anyone but their die-hard supporters. Quite simply, the Guomindang had failed the Chinese people. Now, don't forget that if you are interested in tutorials, you can see if I have a slot free. Just get your parents to get in touch with me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com and we'll see if we can work something out. 3 things to say about my tutorials. They are designed to stand on their own. That is, they will not require more work outside of the tutorial, unless that's something you want. They're focused on your needs too. Though having said that, you might find it more useful to have them with a friend and share ideas. and share the cost. And on the subject of cost, I'm happy to negotiate a fee your parents are comfortable with. I'm in this to help, not become rich, which is just as well. But for now, let me thank you, as I hope I always do, for listening, and wish you the very best of luck in your studies. Cheers.